Hi, everyone. I know. So we enter the stage, and I never know if people can see us when we enter the stage or not. We were having like a pre live conversation, so let us know if you heard any of that because
Yeah,
it
did
was
you guys hear our chat? We
deeply
spilled some
personal.
really good tea.
um, Hopefully, no one did. It would be a bummer.
Seriously.
Before we start, I want to talk about you know what this episode means in the most specific senses and how we got to where we are, because this episode wasn't really ever supposed to happen if it were, up to me initially. So, first and foremost, I know it is exciting, and I think like we too have had excitement, but I want us all to kind of temper that excitement because of the real life stakes that are at play here and the real people who are affected by it, and also that like this is circumstantial at best. It's not complete or absolving or firm. It does not mean anything except for that there is renewed possibility. So, I what you heard at the end of today's episode was the second phone call Julie and I had, because I'm not the type of person who's going to like tell someone important news while I'm recording it. It just seems shitty. I'm not that kind of journalist. So we had talked before about a month ago, and what I told Julie in that conversation is I'm not going to share this on the podcast. And that was kind of the plan, mostly because of all the true crime cases in the United States, at least I think Mora's incites the most speculation and frenzy, and has become a bit of a circus, and those are Julie's words, not my own, that have really impacted her family quite negatively. And we talk a little bit about that in next week's episode, but I saw her speak twice at the True Crime Podcast Festival in 22 and 23. And hearing her share what the speculation and the rumors and the people who have dined out on Mora's disappearance, James Renner, have done to that family is like sickening and heartbreaking. So I didn't want to open that Pandora's box, but after talking with Julie, she said, "I want you to share this." And even then, I wasn't quite ready to, because I didn't want anything said on the podcast to be put through the rumor machine or the speculation machine and twisted into something more than it is. And chronologically, we actually found out about the newspaper and the dates. It all happened in 24 hours, but we found out about the newspaper and the dates and their possible connection to Mora before we found out about David. But before I reported on Mora, I wanted to very clearly put out that like this is not definite. This is not 100%. There are other reasons for that newspaper to have been there. So when I decided we were going to report on this, it was important to be conservative and thoughtful and intentional about how we report on it. So um, that said, it is exciting and it is interesting, and I want us all to be able to have those conversations. But I just want to remember there are real people here, people who I care about. I was just texting with Julie, and she said that she really enjoyed the episode. She and Fred listened this evening, so they are on board, and she says that she trusts me to share the story, and that is an honor that I don't want to fuck up. So yeah, I just want us to be really thoughtful. Like, this is a case that means a lot to us, but we have no stakes in it, and the people who do are listening and are affected. And so yeah, all that to say, let's talk about the episode. I think Kim K is going to be lurking in the comments.
Yeah, I saw her already in there.
And she was a big component of this. I forgot, because I'm a dickhead, Tooks. I keep forgetting you. We have a Patreon episode I need to publish. I forgot to mention you, that you were the one who took the pictures or found the pictures of the newspaper. So props to you for your thoughtful and keen eye. So I guess we should start with David. I was getting ready to go to Mexico. I had to leave my house at 3 a.m, and David called at 9 p.m. After I had just put out an episode and was like exhausted and had been up for I think like 16 or 17 hours. And wow. So I immediately recorded a voice memo and sent it to the group. Let's talk about initial thoughts.
Whew. Well, okay, so you did this, what was it, a month ago, 2 months ago at this point?
Yeah, it was like late March, I think.
Yeah, so maybe I didn't make the connection. Maybe at the time I knew this. I did not understand the connection with stealing his identity. Like I never got that in our conversations. Maybe it was there and I just didn't see it. But that blew me away, which was cool because sometimes I like surprises in the episodes. But I still can't get over David's story about hearing somebody in his home while he and his wife were asleep. It's the scariest thing I've ever heard.
And it's almost like, me, if something's too perfect, I'm skeptical about it.
Yeah.
I'm like, there's no way he could have heard the podcast because he's Amish.
This poor, like, sweet Amish couple is, like, got dragged into this. And it's such a strange story. And they seem to remember it fairly vividly.
Yeah, it was funny because I guess I went in with some biases or some stereotyping, and I just assumed there would be a weird like power dynamic or maybe some like masculinity issues. And she was like clearly very rattled by it, but he just as quickly was like, yeah, it was very scary. We were too scared to go downstairs. And I was like, oh, this is lovely. I mean, and it's not lovely, but I love that he wasn't trying to like macho out about it or anything.
Yeah,
for sure.
I immediately, my mind goes to that that part where Keys talks about being in a home while people were there. I think I listened to the episode yesterday, but it's all in my head. I can't remember what Josh has told us and what I remember, but like Godin asks him, like, did you ever wait in a home for people? And I'm like, this is a perfect example of him going into a home just to like creepy crawl it. Like just I feel like that's my worst nightmare. Obviously the couriers is worse, but it's just so close. These people came so close to that happening to them.
Yeah. It was in the episode twice, which was people always are like, you play the clips over and over again. And I'm like, yeah, they change with context. And so like both clips were in twice because I wanted to like play them before we knew all this information and then after, so everyone could really be like, oh.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, it reminds me too, Shayna, that's one of your like, I don't want to say favorite, but one of those sightings that you always talk about is the lawyer in upstate New York in like I think it was 1999.
Colchester, Massachusetts.
Oh, Colchester, Massachusetts.
No, Vermont, Colchester, Vermont.
What's wrong with me?
Yeah. But where the guy said, what are you here for? And he said, you. And, he was obviously trying to get into the house at night. So it reminded me of that.
Yes. For those who haven't heard me talk about this tip, it was a lawyer from Colchester, Vermont. He said in the late 90s, somebody tried to break into his house and he turned on the lights. I think it was the outdoor lights and like opened the window and yelled, "What do you want?" And the perpetrator ran away. And as he was running away, he yelled, "You," which is just horrifying because I mean, we know if it was Keys, we know what that means. And that's really scary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I kept thinking about with David and his wife. And yeah, just the fact knowing that someone's downstairs. I saw someone in the comments said, what were they waiting for? I don't know how I would react either if that were me, but I guess just like hoping the person.
I mean, it's like that, was it Freeze?
Fight or flight.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Like, yeah. I can totally see myself just freezing everything and praying that nobody notices I'm there.
Well, and the Amish by nature are very non-confrontational, non-violent. They're very
Yeah.
they believe in very strong like pacifist views. So I don't know that they would even feel right to like confront the person. Um, no, I can't remember. I was just kind of digesting and chewing over the whole situation, the whole story. They didn't have electricity out there, correct?
No. So it turns
Okay.
out that they did for a brief while, or they've always had plumbing, but the water was shut off at some point. So that I think is important to circle back to, because I think I've said at one point there wasn't plumbing. There was earlier on, but I think after probably 98, 99, 2000, it was no longer plumbed. But they did, I don't know when the electricity would have stopped, because it could have been by then, but there's outlets in the pictures. So
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't sure if it was equipped with that. That just adds another layer to it. If it didn't have lighting, it would just make it even worse.
Yeah, Quinlan reminded me, fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. That's exactly what I was trying to say. Thank you, Quinlan. Somebody asked, which I think is a helpful question, where is the evidence they stole David's identity? It would be good to go into that and explain that a little more.
oh yeah, so there isn't. We thought, so basically we Kim K and I think Jordan did also, maybe together separately, collected data on the Constable house, and it basically showed everyone who had ever lived there. And David's name was on there during a time in which we knew Keyes owned the property. So then we looked into David, and we could place him living other places his entire life. So we were like, well, there's no way Keyes had a roommate in his Constable house, and this guy clearly has had addresses everywhere. So Keyes must have stolen his identity. And when I called him, that's the conversation I thought we were going to have.
Oh,
Not
okay, that makes
did in
sense.
fact actually live in the house.
That makes sense. Okay, gotcha. Do you think he ever, like, did David live in all those places?
I think so. I didn't. We can add it to the list, but
Yeah.
yeah, I think so. I mean, he and I talked a little bit, just like casual chatting about places he's lived, and they seem to line up with the list. But those lists are always a little bit wonky, which was the other concern we had. 'Cause,
Yeah,
I've
that is
done
accurate.
background searches on me that have placed me living in places I've never been.
Yeah. It's
Same here.
crazy that he was there for a month and it made it into his background search, or it made it into like the proper, like, it seems like a very unofficial type deal, but I guess maybe he officially like registered himself as living there, like at the post office.
Yeah, possibly, or maybe like he was collecting unemployment, or I
Yeah.
mean, it could be myriad of reasons. I don't know that
Yeah.
Amish. I feel like they're probably more libertarian than to collect unemployment, but there's
And a lot of times when you see the 1 month on those background reports, that's a sign that it's not always accurate. So the fact
Yeah.
that this was accurate is just astounding too.
Yeah.
and it is, like I said, I don't like to bombard people with recording equipment, but it's the one call I wish I recorded, because I just like it did provide some levity that the whole time we're having this very serious conversation, there's just like a cacophony of sheep in the background. And I thought about like adding sheep background noises, but it just seemed like A, like a fake out, and B, a little cheesy. But
Yeah.
it was like I was trying not to laugh while having what was obviously a very profound and serious conversation.
You gotta watch the show that just came out, Bodkin, all about making a true crime podcast, and that's exactly what they're looking for in the whole show, like those atmospheric sounds. And the guy, it's funny because it's also like a satire of true crime podcasts too. So I think all of you would like it if you haven't checked it out yet. But that's what that sheep part reminds me of.
Nice.
SWAC pod, SWAC pod, somewhere
What's that?
a crime. Anyway, they asked, how did David and his wife react when they found out about Keyes and how close they were to him? It's funny because David was like, oh yeah, my friend sent me a newspaper clipping. He killed a couple people, right? And I was like, well, sorta. And so then I like went into high level detail about Keyes's crimes, and he was like, oh wow. And then she seemed a little more, not even frazzled, but just almost like if they were not Amish, I would assume she was like one of us, like a true crime listener, because she seemed like a little titillated by it, while also like fearfully recounting her own experiences.
How it's very interesting. I would love to just talk to them and hear about this. I mean, I hear about it through you, but I want you to call them and get every detail. I want to like wrench every detail out of these people.
Well, and he was so sweet. He was like, "Call anytime you want." I was like, "I will be careful what you wish for."
Right? I know, seriously. Um, I, I do wonder, did Keys know that Heidi was renting the place out? Did he get there and find out? Like, was his intent to stay there and he realized he couldn't? Or was his plan the entire time to go fuck with these people?
Yeah, I at first I wondered that too, but then listening back to these interviews, it seemed like at least at some point he was made aware of it. It's Heidi is such a, we have reason to believe that allegedly Heidi has done some very shady things. So I wouldn't put it past her to be like, oh, I'm pissed at my kid. He lives on the other side of the country. I'm going to rent out his house that we gave him. But, he clearly found out.
Yeah. Yes, he did. And I wonder, why did he just fuck with them? Like, was he not prepared? Was he not in the mood? Was it like a don't, fuck with people on your proper, and too close to home?
Probably
That's,
too close to home.
yeah. Though, what an easy way to get, make them disappear. But I guess people knew they were staying there. Oh, Stephanie asked us actually, in like our private message, did you try and get in touch with their friend who was across the street?
That was a bad time to take a sip of my drink. Not yet. We are working on it.
That's what I thought.
I know Kim K has been like diligently trying to get a number for that person and track down the name that was given to us by David, because it does not appear that that person lives in the house currently. And you guys have been on Poplar Road. I'm not about to go door knocking up there.
Go door to door.
Yeah, so we're working on it. My theory is, Heidi was at the time Amish adjacent, so I could imagine there would have been some sort of pre-existing relationship with these Amish folk who lived across the street.
Yeah, it makes sense. Somebody asked about have cadaver dogs been to the property? I believe they have, but they didn't get very far on the property.
No, I don't believe they searched the whole property. And I don't want to talk out of turn because I can't remember the specifics, but I'm sure we'll get into it very soon. I think there's I'm always worried I'm going to annoy people because I think there's so much information that sometimes we have to do like recaps now on the episode to be like, this is what this means and this is who this is. So I'm sure we will have to go over that search at some point.
Reba wants to know, could Mora's shoes be some of the shoes in the constable cabin?
That is a great question, and I don't think I sent the pictures to Julie, so I will do that tonight.
Yeah, it's a good question.
Kaz says no door knocking.
Yeah. Kaz is on top. She's like our scout leader. People want to know what's so creepy about Poplar Street. How do I say this without getting myself into trouble? It's not inviting. There are some Confederate flags amongst other flags that don't make, gay people like me feel welcome. There's a ton of no trespassing. There's barbed wire. It strikes me as a place that people go to who don't want to be found or bothered. And so I'm not trying to fuck with any of those people, especially the ones who clearly don't like gay people.
Yeah, it's a very like stuff is kind of far apart. Very rural. I'd rather call first.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're so close to Canada too. It's kind of like eerie in that sense. There's all this just like vacant land that most of the property has part of their ownership, but it's kind of creepy in that sense too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think never mind. I'm not gonna go there. Yeah, it's not an inviting neighborhood. Yeah, I don't call 911 signs 1000%. People there are not calling 911.
Yeah.
Moving right along.
Do you want to answer this question? I've seen this come up a couple times. Are you still trying to buy the Constable house?
Yeah, it's fallen a little bit off my radar for reasons I don't really want to get into. I think I'm not trying to push anything because it's just a sensitive topic that again affects people with greater stakes than me. But like I have Google alerts, and if it comes up for sale or comes up for auction, yeah, I will make an offer. Or the business will make an offer. I certainly won't. And yeah, we'll see. Yeah, that's all I'll say about that.
On a slightly different note, I don't know. I think I'm the only one out of us right now who has listened to Julie Murray's podcast. What is it called? Media Pressure.
Yeah.
Highly recommend that to
Yes.
everyone who wants to know more about it. I listened probably about a month ago when we started talking about Mora. It's really well done. And I feel like it's the first podcast where I actually got a sense of who Mora was. She seems like, we've heard all these things over the years, like she have run away on her own and started over? And I feel like after listening to that podcast, there's no way that Mora left on her own willingly.
And we'll talk about that next week.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw some people asking, and people were recommending some shows, including Crime Junkie. And I would say, like, if you want to hear about it, listen to the people who knew her. Don't listen to people who are more interested in plagiarizing people and making millions of dollars.
Yeah, Julie did an amazing job on her show.
I'm in a cranky
can't
mood.
recommend it more.
Yeah, you're with the hot
But I
water.
would say the same thing here. Like, if Tammy or Sarah put out a show about keys, I would say listen to that. Don't listen to this shit. Because
Yeah.
Listen to the people who have the
Well-
highest stakes.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah,
With the Heidi, yeah, that would.
Well,
be
yeah. Don't, if Heidi puts out a podcast, run the other way.
But yeah, I couldn't recommend
Oh,
Julie's
goodness.
podcast more if you really want to learn about. Like, it's very thorough. She goes into who her sister was, their relationship. I feel like so much has been said about this family by people who really don't have their best interest at heart. And I was really pleasantly surprised at how normal these people seemed, and like just how Mora was just a normal person. And this was like not like there's just no way that in my mind that this girl left on her own, and her family misses her. And like just the way things have been blown up in other media about her is crazy once you listen to this.
Yeah. Yes. And we talk a little bit about that. I wish I had asked for more of her time, but I know she's very busy, and it's strange. Like, we're not close friends, but we have become friendly. We chat, we text. And it suddenly really changed the dynamic in a way that has made me reevaluate talking to other families, because I was like, oh, like, it feels weird asking of my friend to have these conversations that I know are quite painful to her. But I do wish I had asked for more over time so we could get more in depth. But I also know, like, we don't need to, because everyone should just go listen to Media Pressure.
Yeah, go listen to it. Couldn't recommend it more. After listening to it and hearing Julie on the show, I'm like, oh, Josh is friends with someone famous.
So
It's very good.
Anything else about David and his experiences? I think, because of this episode, which was intentionally very short, and had packed a lot of punch. I think it was easy to overlook some like very affecting things. So, you know, is it possible Keys rented out the cabin to other people, or Heidi did? That is kind of a terrifying thought. How many people could have been in there mucking up evidence, adding fingerprints, adding stuff, and was that intentional? Because that was the thought I had walking away from writing this episode yesterday, which was like, what a great way to cover his tracks, because there's so much plausible deniability, which is why I was so curious why he didn't say that he had tenants in that house, because that just seems like a great way to cover himself.
It is.
That's a good point.
On the other hand, he may never have had tenants in that house. His mother may have.
Yeah.
You know, like which could have been what it meant to him, or he could have plain old forgotten because it was 1 month and he had nothing to do with it other than creeping these people in the house out. I have no idea.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody asked, could Keys have been in touch with Maura over instant messenger? I mean, it's possible. I don't know.
Yeah, someone just messaged me on Facebook a theory. Oh, and I'm just, because I am punchy, I try to keep my personal Facebook separate so I can like live in a world that doesn't involve Keys. So like the worst place to contact me. Like I will intentionally not read your message, even if it's like urgent. I have evidence. I'm like, no, this is my safe space. So
Message me or Tux.
yeah, or you know, go to the website. There's a contact form. But I did peek at that one, and someone had wondered if like maybe he tried to pull the "I'm selling a car on Craigslist" thing, because if I recall correctly, she was looking to buy a car because she had damaged hers in a previous accident, and I was like, oh, that could be worth looking into.
Definitely worth looking into.
And
Somebody else.
or you were going to say the thing about the Jeep Grand Cherokee comment?
No. Oh no, I was going to say someone said, could he have caused the accident? It's certainly possible. I've wondered that myself.
Yeah, and that goes into wondering, I guess there was a sighting of a white Jeep Grand Cherokee with New Hampshire plates. Does Keys have any ties to that vehicle?
I mean, he often flew into Manchester, New Hampshire. If you rented a car from there, it could have, feasibly had New Hampshire plates. I can't think of any other reason why he would have a car with New Hampshire plates, because he would have either Maine or New York, but he also could have stolen a car, or
could have even stolen plates.
Yeah, he could have stolen plates. We've reason to believe he was swapping plates on cars. So I think that's the thing. And Julie and I talk about it, like anything is possible at this point. We've seen evidence or very strong circumstantial evidence that he was doing a lot more to cover his tracks or plan his crimes than I think we gave him credit for.
I think something else that's disturbing to me about these revelations and the potential implications too is, for me personally, if Keys was involved in Maura's case, then I think, to me, the likelihood that he also took Brianna goes up, just because the cases are so similar. And I know law enforcement has always said they don't think there's a connection, but just the geography, the circumstances, and then if you throw in a serial predator like Keys, it seems more likely to me.
I agree. Well, and why would they know there's a connection if it was a serial killer who sort of went in, caused an accident, took someone and left? Like they see, like on the surface, they're similar, but like I can see why there's no reason for law enforcement to believe that they're connected, and there was for us.
I am curious because, like, in what we know about Maura's case in particular, which is very limited, law enforcement have never brought up Keys. It's nowhere in the files. It's her name has never come up anywhere, I don't believe. Again, I have not committed the 4,500 pages to memory, but I don't recall ever seeing her name in them. And then even Brianna, we've had that weird one single article where they say it wasn't him because of, I think, credit card transaction. So yeah, I'm curious why there hasn't been more police scrutiny into Keys, and if that's because there's a reason, or if it just is, tunnel vision or other reasons.
Someone said, was Maura part of the name is 45? No, she was not, and neither was Brianna Maitland.
No.
But also, like, why would they think it was Keys if Keys was supposed to be in, where was it, Utah?
Yeah.
Like, I can see them being like, oh, like we always did. Oh, Utah. Like, no way he did this.
Yeah. Someone asked about what is the connection. It is the date on the newspaper, which, I'll name the date next week, but here we are. Basically, it like, for someone to have had that newspaper with that date, they would have had to have been in Malone or Constable on that date or the few days following the publication of that newspaper, which aligns with when Mara disappeared.
I also think it's interesting that we were on a research trip during the 20-year anniversary of Maura's disappearance.
And we almost went
to the vigil. I know, but it's almost like if we had gone to the vigil, would these circumstances have happened? I don't know. It's just eerie to me, that timing. I keep thinking about that because we were close enough that we could have driven to the vigil and been there, but that was a somber day. That was the day we checked out St. Albans and the Black Lantern Inn, and I think we were kind of like, I don't know.
St. Albans is a somber town.
Yeah, it was a long day too. I think it was also that day where like you've been traveling with people for like 4 or 5 days and you kind of are like, I need alone time desperately.
My introversion is kicking in and I don't want to have to go like talk to a bunch of people at a somber event, even though I'm very interested in,
And we had been in the car for like 6 hours, and I think it was like we could drive 2 hours there and 2.5 hours back, or we could just go back. And I think that was the one night we didn't even like get dinner or anything. We all just went back to our rooms, right?
We were. I think we eventually did go to dinner, but we.
Oh, that was prime rib night.
Yeah, I didn't want to say it and sound like, but we needed a break, I think, and then but I don't know. I'm not sure what I believe in like fate and karma and all that stuff, but like it is interesting to me, that timing. We were there at that time. We found, this potential evidence. It's just interesting to me. And also, I don't know, Josh, you're probably going to go into it in the next episode, but also like, Julie's response to when you did approach her with this information. So,
yeah, it'll be, a small spoiler, but the very first conversation Julie and I ever had, she approached me and said, like, do you think Keys could be responsible for Maura? And we'll get into that conversation in the episode next week, because it turns out now to be quite an ironic conversation all these years later. But yeah, she, I think, was more open to it than me. And Julie is, she's very intimidating because she's very stoic and very quiet, and she could kick the shit out of anybody. And very serious. And then you also know just like what she's been through. And so I've gotten to know her. I'm still a little intimidated by her, and I don't think she wants anyone to be. I think she just, much like me, is a very self-protecting person. And so it was, a little weird to have that conversation at first and be like, oh God, like, I just want you to respect me and like me. And I don't know where I was going with that. But.
No, I get it. Because I heard her on the podcast and, I listened to her podcast. I have so much respect for her. I was like, oh God, she's so famous. Like, that's my reaction. Like, because she's sounds like a really intimidating, but in a good way, like person, like a really interesting, smart person.
Very smart, very thoughtful. And that's where I was going, is like, I talked about her because I had heard from other people that she didn't really want people covering the case anymore. And she said, I do. I want Maura's name out there. There's probably someone who knows something who doesn't realize they know something important. So the more we talk about it, and, the circus around my sister has been quite harmful. to our family, and so it's, you know, I think she struggles way more than me with the ethics of true crime because I think she's had to deal with it head on.
Absolutely.
Any other questions, thoughts?
A few Jordan, I don't know if you can see the chat, but some people
No,
are
I
asking
can't. I'm
about your
sorry.
shirt. Yeah, I didn't think you could, so they wanted to see it
Oh, my
earlier.
shirt?
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead and find out. Yeah.
This is an interesting question. Somebody said, I was curious about the student who was injured on campus at that time. Petrit Vasi hit and run. Could that have been Israel Keys? I mean, I never thought of that before. It's an interesting idea. I know people usually suggest it could have been Mora, which is kind of ridiculous. And no, I don't believe it was Mora, which is not what you were asking. I'm just putting that out there. But
It comes up a lot.
it's an interesting question. I mean, who knows? I wouldn't think it was Keys, but I have no idea. It could be.
Yeah, it seems unlikely to. Or
Yeah.
said that before. It seems unlikely just because it's a high population area. I think that crime occurred in broad daylight.
Did it? I forgot.
believe so.
I know. I listened to her whole
Someone's gonna yell
podcast,
at me about
but
this.
I need to listen again. With like, you know, the first time I listen to something like this, I don't write everything down or take notes. So I need to listen to it again because I know she does bring it up. But I would think it wasn't, but who knows?
It seems
I've been
like
surprised about
high
more.
risk, low reward for
Yeah.
him.
Yeah. But interesting question though.
Yeah.
Because I was afraid it was going to go into like, do you think Mora did it? Which I don't. So I was relieved. Oh, someone said it was nighttime.
Okay. Thank you, Alexandra.
Let's see.
Someone said invite Julie to the Berkshire Podcast Festival.
I think I might. She doesn't live in Massachusetts anymore, but I would love to have her here. I think where we're at now is like I really wanted it to be an all genre festival, but it's really heavy on true crime.
It's tricky. It's tricky, Josh. All your friends are true crime podcasters. Well, not all of them, but
not all of them, but the ones who aren't like can't come are like, well, it's all true crime, and I'm like, I know, but if you come, then it won't be all true crime. I think we're trying to figure out, you know, what its identity is going to be, and this is going to be a great test run. But we're trying to nail down a Bravo corner, so there will be some comedy, some Bravo, and then a fuck ton of true crime. Jessica P, you're on to something, but we'll talk about that in next week's episode. David never ended up talking to the FBI. No, he did not. And I think it was because of just lifestyle. I think he like didn't have a phone until recently, would have had no way to like find the FBI's number. And I also don't think he completely understood the gravity of the situation he was in. He was like, yeah, I heard some people were trying to get in touch with me.
Reba wants to know, will you be having a Patreon cocktail party on Friday Eve in October? Ooh, that would be fun.
Yes, we are having for VIP and Patreon folks. Actually, it was only for VIP, but it feels shitty not to involve at least the high level Patreon folks. There will be a cocktail party. It is going to be at Tourists. It's going to be a lot of fun, and most of the podcasters will be there. We just booked Clemence Michelin, writer of The Quiet Tenant, is going to come and moderate some panels, and she'll be present. So it'll be a good schmoozy time.
And at the VIP cocktail party last time, that's when we saw those photos.
Oh yeah,
Bicycle
Reba.
Yeah, from Reba. So never know what might happen. And I don't think this came up yet, and I don't think this is a spoiler or anything, but when we did the Vermont meetup, we met someone whose father and aunt worked at the Tupper Lake Bank that Keys robbed, and we got some interesting insight from that. And it's just interesting to go to these meetups, who you might run into and what information you might learn.
Oh yeah, I mean Alaska, Seattle, and Vermont, we've always like every meetup gotten like incredible information, which is why like yes, I think these Trova trips we're going to do are going to be a ton of fun, but I'm also like, imagine just like having people all together for like 5 days talking about keys. Like we can probably drum up a lot of great information. So fill
Right.
out the survey if you haven't yet.
Somebody wants to know what level Patreon.
Oh, I think last year the Patreon party was for everyone last year. Yeah. Oh, fuck it. Let's let's just say I think there's a like tickets to event level. I think is $5. So let's just say $5 and up can come to the VIP cocktail hour.
Love it. Have you looked into whether or not Keys could have been stalking, lurking at UMass campus? I mean, I don't think we have any sightings of him there, but that also doesn't mean that he wasn't there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me. We have him in other surrounding areas.
Yeah. Yeah.
And here's a little like tidbit that I'd clipped because I was gonna put it in today's episode, but I don't think there's space for it. But I don't know how I missed it. We do have Key saying in his November 23rd interview that he was at the Constable property about a year ago. So we do have confirmation from him that he was there in autumn of 2011. 2012. 2011.
11.
Yeah.
11, yeah. Interesting.
That is interesting.
In regards to like Marble and other people, it's just
And possibly Bike Guy, which we have sent those pictures off to our super recognizer.
That is fascinating.
Yeah.
The whole
And,
super recognizer, just the concept of it.
And again, I think that's before that farmhouse in Essex was demolished too.
Oh, interesting.
Xavier, we filed a FOIA. No, we didn't file a FOIA for Mora. I know that they are not releasing them. I don't think it's worth our time. I know many people who have filed for Mora's files and have been denied, including her own family. So I don't think it's a valuable use of our time, unfortunately.
Jenna wants to know if anything changed in the timeline in 2007 because so much is changing. Offhand, I can't think of anything, but that doesn't mean that.
I guess I would need more context.
Yeah, I would need if you have a date in mind, feel free to like go to the website and fill out the contact thing, give us the date, and we can look it up.
Oh, also speaking of, like, I have hired an operations coordinator. She begins in a week and a half. And so things have been falling through the cracks, and they will no longer be falling through the cracks. I'm hoping this will help with communication and Patreon specifically. So I know things have been a little muddled. The show grew very quickly, and I had to put on my big boy pants while also trying to like do other shows that I care about. And yeah, it's been a communications nightmare. So things will start to tighten up around here again. So.
Hiring somebody is hard.
It is.
job in itself.
It isn't like I've been like in all my free time, like writing like manuals, brand guidelines.
Training manuals. Quinlan, I think that's going to come up in the next episode about the rental car mileage for Salt Lake City.
Yes.
And then where I just lost it, Jenna was saying December 12th, 2007. I'd have to look into our notes, but that doesn't.
I will look that up. I don't have my I'm at my parents' house right now. I don't have my calendar with me, but I will look it up when I get back to my apartment. And somebody said you might FOIA the reports for the other smaller crimes that police investigated the same night Maura disappeared. Oh, interesting.
That's a great idea.
That is a really good idea, Jessica P. Thank you. And then when was
right
the
on
house demolished, Jordan?
I think it was in early 2012. I could be mistaken, but I believe it was in late 2011, early 2012. I could be a little off there though.
No, I literally just looked at this when I was writing the episode, but it's already gone. My mind is a sieve.
Somebody asked, did the FBI stop trying to tie him to crimes once he died? Yes.
I mean, not immediately, but
Yeah.
pretty quickly thereafter.
Pretty like
Allegedly.
yeah, like I feel like they say they're open to it, and I'm sure in theory they are, but they're the FBI. They have a lot going on.
I mean, here I will say this: like, I do know to some degree they are looking into his crimes. So I mean, it's not a full-blown investigation, but I do know there is at least some level of interest there still, and that's all I'll say about that.
Okay, all right. As long as there's some level. Has the team done any Google search trend data mining research to Moore and Brianna Maitland?
Not yet.
Not that I know of.
I don't know.
Not specifically
question.
that I know of.
Yeah.
Good question.
It'll be on the list. I think like that's the thing is our research is never ending. We could triple the team and not get it done. So it'll happen at some point. Someone just told me to come to the Midwest, and I was just there. You had your chance.
What's the process for the Canadian FOIA equivalent? Whew, that's
It's a nightmare.
Yeah.
We've had a few Canadians doing stuff, and we have not gotten a single positive result yet. So
if you're Canadian and you want help,
their rules are a lot more strict and complicated than ours. I know just briefly, I've looked into some of the process, and I think that it's usually you definitely have to be a citizen, and they usually require you to be like next of kin. So it's pretty strict. It's pretty strict.
Yeah. I was gonna say something. It's gone. It probably wasn't that important. Oh no. I told you guys about this. So I found a program that does AI facial recognition matching. It's basically like Google for facial recognition, and it costs $1 bajillion. So we're only gonna have a 2-month license. But in my spare time, we've been running photos of keys through that, and it's been quite fascinating. Nothing interesting has come up yet, but it's kind of like in its infancy, and you have to like try different photos and different things, and been running photos of his people he's close to see if pictures of him come up. It's been fascinating. So I think we're going to put that in our fun little like digital investigation bucket, which we haven't really been spending a lot of time with. I mean, Jordan has a little bit, but I haven't done any data mining or anything like that in a while.
I still don't know how to data mine, and I'm going to be completely honest with you guys.
It would drive you crazy because it is 99% rabbit holes. You could spend 45 hours going down long paths, and then they all end in dead ends.
I mean, I've watched you guys do it, but I have no idea how to do it.
Yeah, I've got one little program I use that runs usernames, and I've been running his usernames through it about every 90 days or so to see if anything new comes up. But again, you got to do a lot of digging on those to verify them. So
Terry Whalen, who is in the Midwest and wants you in the Midwest, said she did not. How did I not know this? Are you in the Facebook group? Join our Facebook group because he says a lot of stuff there too.
It's also, I always say it at the beginning of the show, people hate the housekeeping, but then they're like, I didn't know about this. And I'm like, well, you should listen to the housekeeping. Sorry, no, that's not directed at you too. I just get a lot of like, no one told me this. And I'm like, it was on the podcast 2 times.
Or another thing, go to the Studio Both End website as well. So we want people to go there, check things out. What's going? There's events listed, the schedule, other podcasts that Josh has created.
Yeah, the website is, the timeline is there. Like, not enough people are. I kind of always expected people would just be like living on the website, and we get like 17 hits a day. And I'm like, there's so much information there.
One of like 5 of those are probably us every day.
I know, right? Alexandra asked, could dogs be useful to connect keys and more, or would the sense be too old? Specifically, I'm thinking of her car. I don't know. I know like dead bodies or like decomposure scents can still be scented after this amount of time, but I don't know if like her scent could ever be connected to his through scent.
That's a lot of logistics.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to say anything about caches, but there were a couple questions about caches.
Well,
Are there
let's.
plans to go looking for any caches?
I would love to.
Jordan, I'm there.
Stay when
You're ready.
I'll be there with the shovel.
I think, we've actually, Kim K has done a ton of cache work over the last year, which we have not had a time to cover yet. We have not had a time to cover, sure. So that'll come up at some point. I do want to do a field trip. We are working with some individuals who we'll be talking to on the show at some point soon, who are like heavily focused on caches. So my dream is to have all the researchers and them all together in the field looking for caches. And they'll
But
be
not
more,
Shayna if there are spiders.
they'll be more successful than the four of us and Dan were, which was comedy errors.
Oh, that was funny.
Yes, please.
But yeah, I think more to come on caches. I think we're sharing some information with some folks now, and they're sharing with us, and we want to make sure that we're protecting everybody's work. And yeah, but I think there will be a robust conversation about caches in the future.
Everybody is reminding us not to forget our shovel, like the FBI did that one time.
Mm-hmm.
And Kaz was I was texting with Kaz last night, and she was reading.
She texted me this today.
Yes.
I was dying.
It was a cold case that she was looking into, and they were looking for a victim who was buried, I think buried alive underground, and they forgot to bring a shovel. It's not funny because that's actually horrifying, but yeah, they have a really bad track record with shovels.
Yeah.
Their comment about that in the file will always haunt me. Bringing a shovel would have been a good decision. Is a direct quote from the file. I'm like, yeah, no kidding, guys. Come on.
Thank you for your astute observation. I don't know if I should say this or not. Well, now I have to. It would be dickish not to. So, we are adding 2 episodes to this season. Some stuff has come up in my personal life that might affect the schedule that I don't want to talk about because I might start crying. But so, there is a chance, as was originally planned, that next week's episode will be the last episode of this half of the season. And I know that sucks, but I promise it's for a very valid reason. And we will know more next week. So just so I can temper everyone's expectations. And, I pray to God that doesn't have to be the case for reasons that have nothing to do with the podcast. But yeah, and that's all I want to say about that. But now let's end on a high note like we always do. What's a good question? Someone else ask a question.
Oh God.
Oh geez, putting us on the spot.
Or someone from the audience ask a question. What's a good?
I like it.
That's better.
What's a good levity, fun, not true crime question? See, even they're like, don't put us on the spot like that.
Oh, thanks, Sarah.
What do you think about the Valley? I don't know what that means, but Josh seems to.
Dark Valley?
The Valley is
the uncanny one.
It is uncanny, but not in that sense. I love the Valley, but I think we probably just need 1 season and then it should be over. Because I like Janet is one of the best villains we've ever had because she's very great at presenting herself as a nice person, and those are my favorite types of villains. Meanwhile, Kristen presents as a villain, but is really just like a deer in the woods. So I love that dynamic. I love the gay guy with Ken doll hair. I'm starting to like Brittany, which is challenging because I have a hard time with stupid people. So it's been an interesting experience for me, but I only think we need 1 season. All right.
I like Reba's question. What's your favorite dessert? That's a good one for
That's a great
lemonade.
one.
Love it.
That is a good one.
Man, that is tough.
All right, I have a long list. I have a sweet tooth, so I'll say
Same.
red velvet cake, mango with sticky rice if I'm getting Thai food.
I like an olive oil cake. I don't have a sweet tooth,
Ooh,
but yeah, like an olive oil cake with like a little bit of lemon is my favorite.
I thought
Ben
you
and
liked your
Jerry's
ramen
fish
cake.
food is all I need to survive. That is all I ever want. I don't need any other dessert ever.
And I've been eating these Oreo ice cream sandwiches. I'll
Mm.
buy two. I'll buy 2 boxes because the kids like them, and then I tell them there's only 1 box and they need to share. So
That's smart parenting. Hide
Um,
some hide a stash for yourself.
Here's another fun one. Angie Cook asked your dream pet if you had no limitations. So we have like it was listed in the in the for sale thing as a pond. It's more of a swamp in our yard. And we do get we get muskrats, we had a beaver, but I am obsessed with capybara, and I feel like they could clean up
Aw.
the pond situation. So that is
They're
my
so
dream
cute.
pet.
Okay, my dream pet, definitely like a bear. I want to hug a bear. It's a dream of mine.
Oh
We
my
just had
god.
one on our porch.
I know. My parents had like a mom, and they weren't baby. They were last year's babies, so they're like almost they're like half adults now, and they were like wrestling and rolling around in front of my parents' window. And it was incredible. Like I saw the video of it, but I'm so jealous that I wasn't there to see it because it was so freaking cute.
I'll just answer. Quinlan said she's eating Thai food right now. I'm jealous. That goes back to my dessert thing. But if I could have any pet, I would say probably a chipmunk. I always wanted a little chipmunk.
Cat Shayna chooses the bear.
Oh,
I
let's
do
not open
choose
that
the
can of worms.
bear. Jordan, what pet?
I don't know. Probably an owl or a crow, some sort of intelligent
it.
bird that I could
You
teach
always
to do things.
say French is a crow, and he's following us around a lot.
Mm.
So
Right?
yeah.
Oswald's Bear Ranch in Michigan. I'm looking it up.
Oh God, I used to have a friend who said he wanted to go out by being hugged by a bear.
Told me this.
I know I did tell you that before. Oh,
I like these questions. They're good.
I always love it when we can just laugh for a little bit and not feel weird about it.
Right? I know.
Someone asked about New Jersey. I think for real it might be Teresa's last season. Her husband is so scary, so scary. I think they need to shake things up. I love Jen Fessler. Maybe that's all I love. And Dolores. I love Dolores. Marge has gotten a little too messy. Jenna Aiden has gotten too messy. But yeah, I think I pray to God this is the last we see from Teresa Giudice. And it's 9:58, so I'm going to end with that profound signing off.
Hi,
Profound and
everybody.
meaningful. Thank you all for being here and for being sensitive and thoughtful and intentional. Not like we're laughing, but I do want to circle back to the beginning. Like the stakes here are quite high and they affect people quite severely. And I've been way more sensitive to it because I know Julie, and it's making me reevaluate every other person who I didn't know. So
Yeah.
thank you for being kind and not speculating or turning this into gossip or whatever. So that is my favorite thing about the audience of this show is you guys are all very caring, ethical people, and it comes through. So thank you for being
Go
amazing.
listen to Media Pressure by Julie Murray. It's an incredible podcast. And if you don't have the utmost respect for her and her family after that, then you're just gone. There's no hope for you.
All right. Good night, everybody, and we will see you next week. And yeah, that's a wrap. Thanks, everyone.
Have a good
Bye.
weekend.
Bye.